You're welcome to today's lecture. It is PALS. PALS is short for Professor Anyanwu's Anatomy Lecture Series. For today's lecture, we'll be looking at the osteology of the humerus. Now, as a guide to today's lecture, we'll first of all take the basic introduction, and then after the basic introduction, we'll try to understand the features of the bone. We'll further look at the muscle attachments. We'll also look at the clinical anatomy, and then we'll say some few things about the osteology. First, let's go to the basic introduction. Now, the bone humerus is the bone of the arm. It is the bone of the arm. It's also the strongest bone of the upper limb. Now, it connects both the scapula and the bones of the forearm. That's the radius and the ulna. So the articulation proximally is with the at the glenoid fossa of the scapula, and then articulation distally is with the radius and ulna. Now, this bone has the basic features, three basic parts: the proximal part, the distal part, and the shaft. So we'll be looking at these three major parts, starting from the proximal part. Now, this is the proximal part. This is the proximal part of the bone, and then this is the distal part. And then from these 2 points will give us the shaft. So the first thing we'll do will be to look at the various parts. Now, in the proximal part has these various parts. The first part we'll look at the proximal part will be the head. The next part will be the necks. Then we also have the tubercles. And then we have the groove. So we'll first identify these parts of the proximal part. The part we have here is this is the head. This is the head of the humerus, and then this is the neck. We have the humerus has two necks. We have the one we call the surgical neck, and we have the anatomical neck. So the part we have here, the part connecting the head, this is the head, and this part is called the anatomical neck, and then the part here is called the surgical neck. Now we have two bony prominences. Those two bony prominences are the tubercles. We have one anteriorly, and then the other one posterolaterally. The one anteriorly we have here is the anterior tubercle, and the one we have at the back is the posterior tubercle. Between these two tubercles, we have a groove. The name of the groove is the bisectal sulcus or intertubercular groove. That is the groove we have at this point. So these four parts make up the proximal part. So I take it again. So this forms this is the head, and then the view we have here is actually the anterior view of the humerus. So if we take them again, the part we have here will be the head. In subsequent parts, I'm going to give more details on these various parts. But for now, let's identify the features. Now, this is the neck. That's the neck. That's the neck. Now, these are the tubercles. This is the lesser tubercle. This is the lesser tubercle. And then the one here is the greater tubercle. That's the greater tubercle. Now, also between the tubercles, as we said, we find the groove, intertubercular groove. Intertubercular groove, or the bicipital sulcus. And then we have, noted by the dotted line here, is the surgical neck. So these parts are the sections that form the proximal part. Now we have the shaft. The shaft is the part, the vertical aspect that connects the two bones, that connect the two ends. So the shaft has, for the shaft also has two major parts. Those parts are the surfaces and the borders. So we have the shaft has 3 surfaces. The shaft has 3 surfaces and 3 borders. 3 surfaces and 3 borders. Subsequently, we'll take more details. But let's first of all get the basic parts. Now, we have the distal part. The distal part of the humerus is also called the condylar part. It's also called the condylar part. And then this condylar part has 2 main parts, distal or condylar part. So the 2 parts are the articular part and the non-articular part. What we have here, we have the articular part. The areas distally are the articular parts. And then the area here are the non-articular parts. So we have the articular parts, that's the point here, and the non-articular parts, that's the point there. So for the articular parts, the articular parts are the parts that actually relate with both the radius and the ulnar distally. So for the articular part, we have the one medially called the trochlea. And then we have the one laterally called the capitulum. Now we have the non-articular part. These ones are the articular parts. Then we have the non-articular part. And then these are the parts that we have. On the medial side, we have the bony prominence here. That is the medial epicondyle. On the lateral part here, we have the lateral epicondyle. And then above both epicondyles, that's the medial and the lateral, we have these bony parts, expanded bony parts that kept moving up. Those parts are called the supracondylar ridges. We have the medial and then the lateral supracondylar ridges. And then above remember we said this is the medial part that articulates with the ulna, that's the trochlea. Above it we have a depression it's called a fossa. And the name of the fossa is the coronoid fossa. And then laterally we have the capitulum. We also have a depression there. And the name of the depression is the radial fossa. They are given these names as a result of the bones that relate with them in flexion. We'll get more details as the class runs. So we have these remaining parts I just mentioned. We have the supracondylar ridges, the coronoid and the radial fossa. And then we also have at the posterior aspect, that's the posterior. This is, as we said earlier, this is the anterior view of the bone, and then this is the posterior view of the bone. So posteriorly, we also have another fossa above the trochlea, and the name of that fossa is olecranon fossa. So we also have olecranon fossa. Olecranon fossa. So let's, if we label them, we'll have this as a trochlea. This is a trochlea. This is the medial epicondyle. This is the medial supracondylar ridge. Medial supracondylar ridge. And then this is the capitulum. This is the capitulum. Here is the radial fossa. And here is the coronoid fossa. And then at the upper part here is the lateral supracondylar ridge. Lateral supracondylar ridge. All right, having gone through the basic features, the next thing we'll do is to look at more details on these various parts. We will start with the proximal part. In the proximal part, if you can recall, the first part of the proximal part is the head. So we'll look at the head. Now, the head of the humerus in life is the one that is the part that articulates with the glenoid fossa of the scapula. Now, this humerus, this head is rounded and smooth, and then it forms about 4 times the surface area of the glenoid fossa. So what this does is that it gives large range of movement for this joint. That's the shoulder joint. This head also is about 3 times spherical. Sometimes people say it's hemispherical. So, but the most important thing here is that the head is hemispherical. It's a lot larger than the articulating surface area in the glenoid fossa, and then it's lined by hyaline cartilage. Next, we look at the tubercles. Now, between the tubercles, we have the lesser tubercle, and then we have the greater tubercle. Now, let's start with the lesser tubercle. The lesser tubercle is actually projected anteriorly. And then this tubercle runs distally. It runs distally and then continues as a crest. This crest gives rise to what we call the medial lip. The medial lip. The medial lip. Now, the greater tubercle here, found laterally and posteriorly, also extends distally and continues downwards as a crest called the lateral lip. So we have the medial lip from the lateral, we have the medial lip from the lesser tubercle and the lateral lip from the greater tubercle. Now, when we look at the posterior aspect, superior and posterior aspect of the greater tubercle, we notice it has 3 facets. One for supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and then the teres minor. When we get to muscle attachment, we are going to look at all of them because we also have the same we also have a similar point of muscle attachment for the lesser tubercle. Now, in between these tubercles, we saw the bicipital sulcus. Now, between the tubercles and then the head of the humerus, we have this connecting area, which we already identified as the anatomical neck. The anatomical neck is the thickest part of this bone. It's the thickest part of the bone. And what it does is it gives surface for attachment of the capsular joint of the shoulder joint. It actually gives, this is the margin for the attachment of the glenohumeral joint. Next is the surgical neck. So, as we noted here, this is surgical neck. So the surgical neck actually separates the proximal part from the distal, from the shaft, and then later on in the lecture we'll look at the importance of the surgical neck. If you follow them, we will look at this groove in between the 2 tubercles. It's actually very interesting. We see some structures within this intertubercular groove. We also call it bicipital sulcus or intertubercular sulcus. Anyone is okay. Now we see a number of structures because soon we see the first structure we see in the bicipital sulcus is the tendon of the long head of biceps brachii. As it runs, remember it comes from the supraglenoid tubercle running distally. So we see it running through this groove. This groove proximally is covered by transverse humeral ligament. So the groove running from the tendon of long end of biceps brachii, running from supraglottic tubercle, runs across this groove, plastered in by the transverse humeral ligament. So it's one of the contents of these bicipital sulcus. So the contents are one, the tendon of the biceps brachii. Number two is the tendon of the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi runs from the back of the scapula and then runs and gets attached to the floor of this groove. Another structure we also see here, the third structure, is the ascending branch of the anterior circumflex humeral artery. If you remember, the anterior circumflex humeral arteries is one of the branches of the axillary artery. Now, having looked at these three contents of the bicipital sulcus, we will go down to more details in the shaft. In the shaft, recall that we said we have three surfaces and three borders. We'll start with the three borders. The shaft actually, the proximal part of the shaft looks cylindrical, while the lower part looks triangular in a cross section. Now, we'll first look at the borders of the shaft. The borders of the shaft. Now, the three borders of the shaft are: one, we have the anterior border. We have the anterior border. Two, we have the lateral border. Three, we have the medial border. We're going to pick at how they all run. Now, for the anterior border is defined only at the proximal third and middle third, and then it's ill-defined at the lower third, and which is different from what we see in the lateral border. The lateral border is only defined at the distal third and not any other part, while the medial border is defined at the distal third and proximal third, and ill-defined at the middle third. I will give you more information on them. Let's first take the anterior border. The anterior border, proximally in the middle third, is seen as a continuation of the lateral lip, and the lateral lip is an extension of the greater tubercle. Now, it runs down towards the middle part. We see a V-shaped part, which is the point of insertion of the deltoid tuberosity. And this part also gives the continuation of the anterior border in the middle third. Now, distally, the anterior border is ill-defined. Then, for the lateral border, it's only defined in the proximal third, and then we see the lateral supracondylar ridge running proximally as the lateral border. For the medial border, we see the medial lip, which is the distal extension of the lesser tubercle, continuing as the medial border, runs out as the medial border, gets ill-defined at the proximal third, and then at the distal third, it continues as the medial supracondylar ridge. Now, these borders will divide the shaft into surfaces, as we've also noted. It will divide the shaft into surfaces. The surfaces we have now will be the one towards the medial surface, which will be anteromedial surface, and we have the one on the lateral, which will be anterolateral surface, and then we have the one at the back, that's the surface here, posterior part, which will be the posterior surface. So we have three surfaces on the shaft, and those surfaces are the anterolateral, the anteromedial and the posterior surfaces. Now, the next thing we'll look at will be more details on the distal part. Now, if you recall, we already identified some of these features of the distal part. We will first of all bring the trochlea.